Have you ever felt like giving up because English feels too hard, but then one tiny detail, something that seemed meaningless, suddenly changed your entire journey? This video holds that answer. Imagine you're sitting alone, books open in front of you, but your mind is running everywhere just to avoid looking at those stiff English sentences. You sigh and think, I've been learning forever and still no progress. At that moment, your brain is like a stubborn child, arms crossed, shaking its head, nope, I don't want this anymore. And so, you give up. Why does this happen? Because your brain hates the feeling of failure. It hates repetition without results. Neuroscience even has a funny name for this, energy-saving mode. In other words, your brain always wants shortcuts, always craves the easy, the familiar. And learning a language? Too hard, too slow, too exhausting. But here's the paradox. Exactly when you feel like you're going nowhere, that's when your brain is secretly building the foundation. Just like in the gym, your muscles don't grow while you lift weights, but after, when you rest. It's the same with English. You don't notice changes day by day, but your brain quietly stores every sound, every word, and then, sometimes, one tiny moment can awaken all the confidence you thought you'd lost. In today's story, that moment comes from a child in Denmark and a drawing so simple, so innocent. A drawing that completely shifted the perspective of an adult ready to give up on English. So, what can make a child's sketch reach so deeply into the heart of a grown-up? Stay with me, and let's find out. Fear of learning English. You know that sinking feeling when you open your mouth to speak English, but your tongue decides to stage a protest? Suddenly, every word you thought you knew just vanishes. It's like your brain hits the blue screen of death, and you stand there, frozen, praying the earth will swallow you whole. Embarrassing, right? Here's the thing, most people in Denmark, or anywhere else, don't struggle with grammar as much as they struggle with fear. Fear of sounding silly. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being enough. And fear is sneaky. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers, better stay quiet, safer that way. That whisper is enough to make you avoid conversations, skip practice, and slowly, give up. Psychologists call this avoidance learning. Your brain associates English with pain, mistakes, awkward silence, red cheeks, and so it learns to dodge the pain. Each time you stay silent, your brain cheers, good job. No embarrassment this time. But here's the cruel trick. The more you avoid, the more powerful the fear becomes. It's like feeding a monster. It grows bigger every time you run away. Let's get real. No one cares as much as you think they do. Studies show listeners forget most grammar slips within seconds. Native speakers don't keep score of your mistakes. They care more about connection than perfection. Yet your brain acts as if one wrong verb tense is a life sentence. So, the fear of learning English isn't about intelligence. It's about survival mode misfiring. Your nervous system thinks you're escaping a tiger when all you're doing is ordering coffee. Which, if you think about it, is hilarious. Basically, Your body is staging a drama while you just want caffeine, and here's the punchline. Your fear isn't proof you're failing, it's proof your brain cares. It means you're stepping into new territory. Fear is the messy paint on the canvas of progress, ugly up close, but beautiful when you step back. Everyday Denmark scene. Picture this, Copenhagen on a chilly spring morning. The streets are calm, bicycles glide past like clockwork, and the smell of fresh bread drifts out from the corner bakery. People aren't rushing like in New York or London. No, here in Denmark, life seems to move at half speed, almost like someone pressed the slow motion button that I end this rhythm. Conversations sound different too. Danes don't shout, don't hurry their words. They speak with pauses, with space to breathe. Imagine standing at a bus stop, two people chat quietly about the weather, and you, as an English learner, can almost follow along, even if it's not English they're speaking. The pace gives your brain a chance to listen, to catch patterns. Now, compare that with how we often treat English practice. We rush. We panic. We want to sound perfect yesterday. But in Denmark's calm mornings, you're reminded that language isn't a race. It's more like riding a bike here, steady, balanced, and yes, you'll wobble at first, maybe even crash into a lamppost. But eventually, you glide. That there's a reason psychologists say environment shapes behavior. When your surroundings are calm, your nervous system relaxes, and your brain actually learns better. Stress, on the other hand, hijacks memory. That's why you forget the word spoon right when you need it most at dinner. Your brain literally throws vocabulary out the window when it senses tension. So, standing there in Denmark's slow rhythm, it feels like life itself is teaching you a secret. Language flows best when you stop forcing it. When you let it breathe. And sometimes, the lesson doesn't come from a classroom, but from watching how a city itself speaks, gently, slowly, without hurry, and this calm setting is exactly where our little story begins, with a child, a piece of paper, and a drawing that held more truth than 1,000 grammar rules. The child and the drawing. Imagine a small classroom tucked away in a Danish neighborhood. Sunlight spills through the big windows, landing on wooden desks where children are busy with crayons and colored pencils. Among them is a little boy, maybe 6 or 7, tongue sticking out in deep concentration. He isn't solving math problems. He isn't memorizing spelling lists. He's drawing. On his paper appears something incredibly simple, a stick figure family standing under a big sun. The lines are crooked, the colors go outside the edges, and the dog looks more like a potato with legs. But here's the surprising part. This messy drawing makes the adults stop and stare. Why? Because above the little house, the boy has written one word in English: home. Think about that. A child who barely knows the alphabet decides to label his picture with an English word. He doesn't worry about whether the grammar is correct, or if his pronunciation will sound funny. He just writes it. No fear. No hesitation. Just pure expression, for the grown-up watching, someone exhausted by years of trying to learn English, this tiny act feels like a punch in the chest. The boy didn't care about mistakes, he cared about meaning. And meaning is what language is for. Scientists who study learning say children have what's called a low affective filter. In plain English, it means they're not blocked by shame or fear yet. They learn faster because they're not busy protecting their ego. Adults, unfortunately, build a wall of self-criticism so high that no new word can climb over it. So here's the irony. A child's shaky letters in crayon can sometimes teach us more about courage than a dozen language textbooks. That messy little home said something huge. Don't wait to be perfect. Just say what matters, and that one word, scrawled in uneven pencil, would change how an adult learner saw English, and himself, forever. The turning point. Now picture the adult. He's been dragging himself through endless English exercises, verb tables, listening drills, vocabulary lists that feel heavier than bricks. Every attempt ends the same: frustration, silence, the quiet thought, maybe this language just isn't for me. His notebooks are filled with half-finished sentences, abandoned like broken promises. Then he sees the child's drawing. That simple house, the potato dog, the shaky letters spelling home. At first, he almost laughs. What kind of English lesson is this? But something in him stirs. A question sneaks into his mind. If a 6-year-old dares to use English without fear, why am I, a grown man, so afraid? It feels like being hit by a wave of honesty. He realizes he's been waiting for permission to make mistakes, to sound ridiculous, to stumble. But the child never asked for permission. The child just expressed. And isn't that the real purpose of language? Not to impress, but to connect. Neuroscience has a phrase for this moment: cognitive reframing. It's when the brain takes the same situation but suddenly looks at it through a different lens. Before, English was a battlefield filled with traps. Now, it becomes a playground, messy, imperfect, but alive. The adult looks at his own notes again, but this time, instead of sighing, he picks up his pen and writes a single sentence in English: I am learning. Not perfect. Not advanced. Just honest. And somehow, that sentence feels as powerful as poetry. Sometimes life doesn't change because of a big event. Sometimes it's a scribble from a child that flips the switch. And in that moment, he no longer feels like a failure. He feels human and ready to try again. Learning from the small things. Here's a strange truth. Your brain loves small wins more than big victories. Why? Because big victories are rare, unpredictable, and often overwhelming. But small wins? They're like little candies for your nervous system, easy to digest, quick to reward, and surprisingly addictive. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't celebrate it, but doing it daily makes your dentist love you. Same with English. Reading one short article, listening to a 5-minute podcast, or saying, thank you, to a barista in English might feel laughably tiny. Yet, science shows those microactions stack up in a process called habit formation. Dopamine, the feel-good chemical, lights up not when you master the whole language, but when you simply complete one small step. The adult in our story finally got this. The child's drawing was proof. Meaning can come from something as tiny as one word. So he stopped aiming for fluent by Friday and started focusing on little moments. Ordering coffee without switching to Danish. Watching cartoons with subtitles. Whispering new words while cycling through Copenhagen's quiet streets. Each step so small it looked silly, until it didn't. Psychologists call this the compound effect. Tiny gains, repeated daily, snowball into giant progress. Just like drops of water carving stone, or Lego bricks stacking into castles. The power isn't in one heroic act, it's in the stubbornness of repetition. Here's the punchline. Adults often want English to feel like fireworks. But real growth? It feels more like moss growing on a rock, silent, steady, invisible, until one day you realize the whole surface is green, and that's exactly how our learner shifted from despair to hope. By treating each word like one more drop of water, carving his way forward. From despair to hope. At first, progress was invisible. The adult still stumbled, still forgot basic words like chair or milk, and still felt the sting of embarrassment when others switched back to Danish to help him out. But here's the difference. This time, he didn't stop. He kept stacking those tiny wins, like Lego bricks on a rainy afternoon. One night, he sat in a small cafe in Copenhagen. The waiter asked, in English, if he wanted milk in his coffee. Normally, panic would have punched him in the chest. But that night, he heard the question, smiled, and answered, yes, just a little, thank you. 6 simple words. Not perfect. Not fancy. But clear, confident, alive. And in that moment, he felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. Language teachers call this the breakthrough moment. That instant when a learner realizes they can actually use the language to live, not just study. It's addictive. Once you feel it, you chase it again and again. The brain rewards you with dopamine, saying, see? You did it. Do it again. Over time, these sparks turned into steady light. He started chatting with tourists in Tivoli Gardens, ordering food in English without switching back, even telling short stories to his niece in clumsy but heartfelt English. And every mistake became less of a wound and more of a stepping stone. The despair that once whispered, "You'll never learn," slowly faded into a new voice. You're learning. Keep going. And that's the secret. Hope doesn't arrive with a marching band. It sneaks in quietly, hidden inside everyday conversations, until suddenly, it's the most natural thing in the world. Here's the twist. The boy's messy drawing didn't just change his English. It changed his life. Because once you stop fearing mistakes in language, you stop fearing them in everything else. Connection and inspiration. Here's the funny part. It wasn't a teacher, a textbook, or a perfect study plan that reignited his fire. It was a child's messy drawing. A stick figure house. A potato-shaped dog. And one shaky English word, home. That word carried more power than any grammar lesson ever could. Why? Because it reminded him that language is not about being flawless. It's about being human. It's about sharing what matters, even if it comes out crooked, clumsy, or imperfect. That one word said, "You belong. You can do this." Mistakes don't erase meaning. And if you think about it, isn't that the soul of every language journey? We spend so much time obsessing over rules that we forget the point: to connect. To be understood. To tell someone, "This is my home," or "I'm learning," or even just, "I'd like some coffee." Simple words that carry entire worlds inside them. In Denmark's calm mornings, with bicycles humming past and conversations flowing gently, our learner realized something profound. Every stumble, every awkward pause, every silly mistake was not proof of failure. It was proof of courage. Proof that he was stepping out of silence and into connection. And maybe that's the lesson for you, too. Don't wait for perfection. Don't wait for permission. Sometimes, the smallest act, the kind that looks ridiculous on paper, has the power to change your entire journey. So here's the final punchline. A child's crayon word reminded an adult of something we all forget. That language isn't about passing a test, it's about touching a soul. And sometimes, the soul that needs touching most is your own. A child's word, a tiny step, a fragile win, these can turn despair into hope. Learning English needs no perfection, only courage. Keep going, keep speaking, and one day, you'll see, you've arrived.